Hi, everybody. Michelangelo Badio here. Everything has been rocking this year. Joey feels good. Yes. Robert feels great. I have been on the road most of the year, so it's great that I'm back home now. And when I was on the road, I didn't even have a guitar. They were all at the studio. And what I did was answer questions, and it went really well. We had a lot of people answering, the request, to have messages. Sorry, I can't even think here. I just finished my new double guitar solo, so my brain is like half of it's thinking on one guitar, half of it's thinking on the other. But I'll wait till everybody comes in, and then we will start. But I'm really happy to be here. You can see one of my double guitars is in the back here. That's the Sawtooth Double. That's the one that I use to record. Hey, Cynthia, how are you? And I have one of the Sawtooth Relics, and they make incredible guitars. These Relics are really awesome. John Peter, hello, how are you? Joel, how are you? Joel in Chicago, cool, yes. Yeah, I am from Chicago, as you know. So it's born on the south side of Chicago, where we got no accent from being the Chicagoans. But then my parents moved to the north side, around O'Hare Airport. Hey, JD, how are you? Nick. So anyway, I wanted to answer your questions, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on at Sawtooth. I'm going to be there very soon, so in the next couple weeks, I'm actually going to be at Sawtooth twice, once in April, another time in May for a couple weeks. But what we're doing is the band that I have with Sawtooth, the Michelangelo Badio Band, is filming 2 videos. We've recorded 2 songs. We did our version of Man in the Box, and I don't do a ton of covers, but this cover is freaking awesome. The solo section, I have to do a solo. I don't care if it was the grunge era. I'll play enough notes for all them grunge dudes and dudettes. So we added a solo section. Nils, the bass player / lead singer, amazing voice. He just killed it on this song. Killed it. So we're going to be releasing that, a video and the music for it, and a brand new double guitar solo. And here's the thing that I love about it. There's not even a click track, no backing tracks, just 3 dudes live. So you're going to hear the double guitar played with the band like you've never heard it before. Every note that you hear, now I've never cheated and put like leads or anything on any tracks, but I like to fatten up with rhythm, those tracks with rhythm guitars, keyboards, embellishments, orchestrate the music. This is raw and stripped down. Wait till you hear this new version of the double. It's great. Okay, now let's answer some questions here. Okay, Cynthia, how do you deal with the struggle between self-doubt and the feeling of being out of place? That's 3 questions. Okay, self-doubt and feeling out of place, that I think is a confidence issue. Because if you doubt yourself and you feel out of place, I mean, I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist, but that seems like you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, that you don't feel confident. And I think all of us go through that sometimes. I know I'm a public person, and so my job revolves around being super private or dealing, I don't just go out to the store a lot of times, or if I do, it's late at night. I go in public places. I'm around a lot of people. That's my interaction. And so I think a lot of it is just an auto-suggestion. If you're not, one of the things that I do, they're little things. For example, sounds crazy. When I get up in the morning, I make my bed. Why? People who are depressed, and I don't have a lot of experience about this, but I've read about it. And I have to admit, I went through a phase a couple of years before COVID when a lot of things happen. You go through times in your life where you just can't believe, why me? And then something else happens. Why not you? And then, something else happens. And so here's what I can say how I deal with things like this. One, I dress up. I don't care if I'm at home or I'm not saying I dress in my, gothic rock stage clothes or leathers or anything, but I always make sure I look good. Take a shower, shave, do everything that you need to do to get ready to go out. Let's say if you were going out to dinner or going out to lunch. So that's what I do. And I always make sure that I feel like I look good enough. And the other thing is, here's where the auto-suggestion comes in. A lot of times, just even if you're not feeling good, here's what I say to myself. I say, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I feel terrific. And I think in my mind, PMA, 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 positive mental attitude. So you give yourself a suggestion. They call it an auto-suggestion of confidence. So that's how I deal with it. Other things in life. Someone said, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, Cynthia, you had another question. I forgot what that was, but I can say this, that, the only constant in life is change. And everybody, especially in this crazy world, I mean, every day, it's hard even to read anything or go online without seeing the gloom and doom scenario about things, or, things cost 40% more today than they did 4 years ago. And that's real. I mean, that's realistic. I remember just getting a cup of coffee. It's almost close to 40% more now than it was just 3-4 years ago. So, I mean, everything. But a lot of what I do personally, everything that I do that has to do with guitar has to do with life. Because the way I approach guitar, I've noticed too from, now touring and just working on down picking. We were goofing around, Adam and I were talking about Michael Schenker. Well, I was thinking, what if it was down pick? I've gotten really good at down picking. Something I never thought about before. Why? Because I can alternate pick so fast. Why should I try to down pick that one? And so, I never thought about it, but then I realized how different the tone is. Somebody, Curtis, you said Henry Ford said you can. Actually, here's exactly what Henry Ford said. He goes, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. That was his quote, but that was a real close. What are the best tools that helped you learn how to play lead guitar for someone like me who is fairly new? Okay, that's a great question. I attacked learning guitar on two fronts. There's actually, there's two basic things that I learned. Okay, now, adding tone and everything, those, come with the territory. But one of the things that made Speed Kills so successful before, and it's still so successful, is this. When I attacked lead guitar, it's the same way I attacked rhythm guitar. The very first band I was in, I was 10 years ago. I was 10 years old, not 10 years ago. I wish! But it was and we played this song, believe it or not, by the Monkees called Valerie. Okay, I don't know why this is not on, but okay. So anyway, I learned the melody to that. It was actually the brass part, and it was in the key of G. I couldn't even do a bar chord. I learned how to do bar chords from the rhythm guitar player. I played it like this. It just didn't sound right, and I watched him, and he played it like this. But I learned a scale when I was 10. It was the pentatonic. It went when I was going. It was in the key of G, and that was the exact lead. That was the first lead I'd ever learned when I was 10. And what I did was my ear heard it, and it made musical sense to this little 10-year-old that just started playing guitar. But so here's what you do. You work on exercises, you work on technique. This is what I've taught since day one. It worked for classical pianists, and it worked for Bach and everyone else, and it still works today. They are not mutually exclusive. Technique does not mean you can't write a song, because I'll defer to Man O' War, and I don't talk about Man O' War too much in the Sawtooth Clinics, but when Joey and I played 30 notes a second, it's easy to be a pundit and say, yeah, well, anybody can play fast, try to write a song. Warriors of the World alone, a song that Joey wrote, has over 100 million views just on the Man O' War site. Man O' War has 40 years of phenomenal songs. The entire set that I play, everyone in the audience pretty much knows every word. So it's a moot point. You know what? Because Mozart was brilliant technically, he couldn't write. It's insanity. It's only in rock and guitar that these, I'm going to just say it, idiot pundits think that you either are David Gilmour or you're some technical guy that can't write. They're not mutually exclusive, they're inclusive. And so here's what I did to attack lead guitar. I started working on technique. I started thinking about alternate picking, dividing the techniques into, okay, well, what do you call this? My guitar teacher, I only took lessons for a few years, but he gave me that exercise. And he said, Mike, here's a hammer on and a pull off. And he just gave me this simple exercise at 10. He didn't talk about picking every note. He didn't say anything about picking. It was purely fretboard hand stuff. So I learned hammers and pulls and the name of it. So when I first started playing guitar and playing leads, what I knew was a more legato stuff. So I would practice that. I would say, okay, yes, I am playing hammers and pulls. It's a hammer and pull. And it's a repetitive pattern. And I didn't know the theory, but I learned technique. And then I started really to expound upon that, and songs. So if you learn songs, you learn what you like to learn. If you learn the technique, you learn what you need to learn. So that's how I got a lot better on lead guitar, and then it translated to rhythm, writing, and everything else. But that's a great question. Let's see. I have a guitar with dead spots on the E, and yes, I've had it set up. They can't get rid of the dead spots. What would you do? Okay, first of all, when a person looks at a guitar, always look at it from the headstock down. Okay, so if you ever see anybody go like this, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, I mean, that's it. All right, nobody. First, so you look at this. You look at the low E side and the high E side, and you see if there's any bows. If the person that's setting it up can't get rid of the buzz, what it sounds like to me is you need what's called a fret job. And what that means is that the actual frets here need to be they call it filed and crowned, so they need to be leveled a little bit. And a real good luthier or setup person has the tools to do that. I mean, they can measure it, they can look at it, they can eyeball it. And so if you have it set up and it still buzzes, try a different setup person, because a good setup guy or girl will know if it's a neck adjustment. There's a truss rod here, sometimes two. And what it does is it adjusts the tension of the neck either this way or this way, concave or convex. Okay, so it can be bowed this way or a reverse bow. The truss rod straightens that out. So once you eliminate that it's a truss rod issue and it's still buzzing, if your action's way, 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 way too low, well, that's a problem in itself. But if your action is low and it buzzes and you like it like that, your frets probably need crowning. That's what it is. Okay, let's see. What else? Do we have any other questions? Hey, Denny, how are you? John Peter, do you think tones come from your fingers too? Absolutely. I mean, if I picked up this guitar, which I just... I sound like me. If somebody else comes out, they sound like them. Eddie Van Halen, when he picked up a guitar, sounded like Eddie Van Halen. Al Di Meola sounded like Al Di Meola. I think a lot of it, and that's what makes guitar so absolutely amazing, that it's the triangle, your head, your fretboard hand, your picking hand, but then the type of picks that you use, the type of instrument you play, what your brain tells your hands to do, all these are involved in the equation. Your hand strength, how do you touch the strings? How does your hand feel when it touches the neck? And so there's so many variables that, yes, it is a lot to do with your fingers and your brain. But there's other things too. If you have a really terrible guitar, or you have the best guitar in the world and a terrible amp, I don't care. All the mental power in the world is not going to, unless you're one of the Avengers, and you have some mind power that we don't know about, and you can fix an amp to sound good. You need good gear. I mean, Sawtooth makes great guitars. They make great amps. So I can because what you need to do is you need to eliminate what problems are. So if you've eliminated that it's the guitar, you have a good guitar, you've eliminated that you've got a good amp, then you have to start saying, okay, now it's up to me. And a lot of times I find the people that complain most about the sound just don't really understand what their sound is in the first place. And there are pickups, for example, Fishman Fluence. They are active and passive. They are taking over. EMG used to be the bad boy with active, but Fishman Fluence is totally superior in my humble opinion. And the reason is that the pickups themselves sound really good. So a person that doesn't possess, because not everybody possesses their own sound. I mean, that's hard to admit, but it's like, I sing good, but I'm not the greatest. I'm not Rob Halford. I'm not Eric Adams. I'm not Jim Gillette. But I have a good voice, but I don't have a great voice. And so I sing as good as I can sing. So my limitations are there. On guitar, I truly feel that I'm not limited because if I practice, I can play whatever I want to play. And I love to practice and I know how. But when there is a physical limitation or a mental limitation that, you just say to yourself, okay, look, I've practiced this. This isn't my wheelhouse. It's like me trying to be a professional athlete. I'm pretty good, but I have no illusions that I'm ever going to be a great basketball player or football, internationally or American football. I'm pretty good and I enjoy it, but it's not something I love to do. So, that's the other side of it. But it's partly, yes, a lot of it has to do with your hands, your mind, and then you have to add the gear into the equation. Okay, what's my opinion on digital amps and digital gear in general? I'll answer that question next, the Sawtooth one. I love digital equipment. I truly do. I think that there is a huge place for software. And I think once we got to the point where it got beyond the ADATs and the digital tape, put it this way, CD quality is nowhere near what vinyl or what, people call it vinyl now, and I do it too, but it was really, we called them records or albums and not vinyl. But I like the term vinyl, it seems universal now. And, times change. Younger people didn't know it was called record. They were called records or albums. So, or maybe they did, but they call it vinyl. But a piece of vinyl, one song on vinyl contains so much more audio information than a standard CD, which is 44.1 kilohertz and 16 bits. That chunks of data were missing on the CD. So when, that was our digital world up until the 21st century. And it was not adequate for gear. Now with computers, with, you're dealing with Thunderbolt drives, you're dealing with super high speed. Picture in the year 2003, okay, so 20 years ago, 2004, that it took an hour to download 1 megabyte. Think about that, a dial-up connection, 32 kilobytes a minute. Okay, that's how slow things were. It seems like, that you were in the Jurassic era, and it was only 20 years ago now, and that's just the 21st century. So what's happened now in the digital age, things have become so quick, and information, vast amounts of information can be transmitted automatically or immediately. And I think software is become the same. That, gone are the days. Now, I love the tube amps, and when I record, whether it's with Manowar or myself, I always mic up an amp. But I have used digital pieces for a long time. I call it vintage digital. I have digital boxes, the Marshall JMP1, Digitech, Rocktron, the Chameleon. And so I have I've been involved in the digital world since the early days of digital. We're talking the early 90s. So to answer your question, I think it's very, very useful now. Now, is it going to be miking a really amazing amp? No, but I think you're in the 80 to 90% range. So it's a lot easier to plug something in for a person that, say, lives in an apartment or than it is to crank up your amp. So do I like digital equipment? Yes. Will it eventually replace real gear? Maybe, probably, the way it's going. But, that's kind of like saying can AI replace, can the Michelangelo Badio AI, artificial intelligent being do more than I can here? Well, maybe, because there's this, worldwide expanse, but it's still not me. It's not a real me. The fake Beatles, I've heard Beatles songs done by the AI Beatles. It sounds like the Beatles, but it's not the Beatles. And I think as things progress, we will know that too. Do amp simulators sound great? Some of them really sound amazing. Will it replace a real amp? I don't know. But I still like real amps, but I love the digital domain too. Okay, what is, let's see, what gauge of picks do you use? Let's go. Oh, when a sawtooth, let's see. Okay, when is Sawtooth receiving their shipment of new electric guitars this year? We're in the beginning of the second quarter of the year, spring, so they should be in by the time I get to LA. So the answer is soon. Let's see, hammer neck inlay. Do you consider double stops old rock, or are they useful in modern rock? Double stops, it'd be like not conjured by. I think double stops are great. I do it in a lot of songs. I think anytime, when some of the younger generation called like boomer bends, it's almost musically racist. When you think about it, it's such a stupid thing to me. It's kind of like, and here's what I say to those people who don't bend, then don't bend. And 10 years from now, when you can't bend and you suck at it, then you can thank yourself. I don't look at any techniques as being in vogue, out of vogue, in style, out of style, good or bad. They are a technique. It's how you use it. I love doing it. especially for some reason, I forgot to hook up my clean channel today, so I don't have the foot switcher, so I've only got the overdriver. I do some clean double stops. But to answer your question on my normal way of taking 10 minutes or longer, they're super useful. Any technique that you can learn something from is useful. And that's the thing that I've said since day one. That's why speed kills, get speed kills if you don't get it. You will not be disappointed. Technique, music, you work on them together. You work on it separately. I'm working on technique for 15 minutes, then I work on music. But once you have these techniques down, you integrate it into the music. And that's when you know you've got it down. Okay, let's see. Hey, Andy, how are you? God, it's been a long time since I've been to the UK. I miss it. Okay, can I do quad stops? Okay, explain that one. Okay, there's 4 notes, quads. Okay, bending is the best. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, and somebody wrote this. Matthew said this best. Always remember, if the technique works for the song, it's a great technique no matter how old it is. I don't equate a technique with old or new, because, I see this a lot that, some guitar players will say, oh, well, here are the new yes, but what if you break it down, what is a new technique? Hammer? Ons? No. Pull-ups? No. Tapping? Is that new? No. Are sweeps new? No. Is alternate picking new? None of these techniques are new that they do. What is new is the way they combine it together. And again, it falls exactly into what I say over and over and over. You learn a technique like tapping. You learn a technique like alternate picking. You integrate it into your style, and you start to create the creative people, the people that have something to say musically that's different, will find a way to say it different musically. It's that simple. Musical people find a way to make music. So an old technique means nothing. Every technique is old. What has somebody discovered that's a new technique? Name a new technique. Maybe what? Bowing with a, guitar pick or something? But the idea is very simple. These techniques are already there. It's how you put them together and incorporate them into your music that creates new things. Here's a perfect example. What new major scale has happened in the last 300 years? It was the Ionian mode. There isn't. Any scale, you can call it a synthetic mode. Now they don't even differentiate between modes and scales. New theory. I'm not the biggest proponent of it, but I get it. For example, when I talked about the 30 notes per string, thing that Joey DeMaio and I did, the founder and genius behind Manowar, phenomenal bass player, I said something and I got no flack for it. And I said it purposely. I said Mixolydian scale. If this would have been when I was going to the university, I would have been downgraded. It's a mode. It's the Mixolydian mode. But see, now they call it the modern Mixolydian scale. What am I talking about? It's a major scale with the flatted seventh. So we've changed a lot of things. But see, these are perceptions that something's old, something's new. Yes, chronologically, I'm older. There are people who are younger. There are people who are older. There are techniques that have been around a long time. But bends will continue to be there. That's like saying, you have to sit down on something. Okay, so our chair's old just because you have a new chair. It might be an older chair, but the concept is still can be fresh or it can be old. So I hope you got something out of that. Okay, can you give a hand synchronization exercise? Somebody asked me about that. Can I give an example? Well, what I do I do the same warm-up routine to start with all the time. I vary it. What I've found is that over the years, they call it the reverse screwdriver, where you take a screwdriver and you turn it away from your body. So what What I do when I do warm-ups is I do fingers 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 4. So I cover all the bases. Then I do 3 notes, 2 notes per string, 3 notes per string, 4 notes per string. I actually showed this entire routine on a recent live stream, and it's on my Speed Kills program thing. You can get at learn2shred.com, learn-to-shred.com. Now, I saw what happened there, Adam. All the messages disappeared. What's that? Okay, there was something from Denny. Can you it was something I saw that Denny said. I was going to answer that and I can't remember. Okay, let's see. Anyway, it's gone. It was back before. It was back around the... okay, there it is. Alternate tunings. That was it. Good question, Denny. I love alternate tunings. Jimmy Page used them. They've used them for centuries. What I love about it, for example, I don't have this guitar tuned up, but Mark Tremonti always used to love this drop D tuning. So he wrote some of the biggest hits in Creed using drop D, alter bridge. It's really cool, you know. And it's in fifths. And there was a song by Crosby, Stills, and Nash called Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, and it was a drop C tuning. So it was E, C, G, E, and then it went down to G, and then the E went down to C, and it was like, brrrring. It was really cool. So do I like alternate tunings? Very much. In fact, I have a book on alternate tunings. I like the drop D tuning. I find I don't use it as much. For example, in Man of War, the music is given to me. So, you know, I have a say on a few things, but, you know, I play the music and I don't use alternate tunings. And in my own music, I've used drop D many times in songs, and I love the sound of it. The song Pray on Pray is a drop D tuning. I had this song called East Side Story, and it was another drop D. So to answer the question, yes, I love alternate tunings. And Nick just said, hey, Nick, how are you? The warm-ups are on Speed Kills too. Thank you for saying that. So when somebody asks what my warm-up regimen is, I talk about it on Speed Kills too. Any other questions here? We're going down the list. Oh, somebody wrote before that. Can you please give me some advice? Adam, can you backtrack a little bit? Okay, from Phil. I bought one of your holdings, those you're holding, signed by you. Shred transferred my hands, don't work together. Can you please give me some advice? Okay, Tom Morello, he told me it was a musical epiphany when I gave him the lesson. He called it speeditis, and he could not coordinate his hands and his head together. Here's what I can tell you. When you work, and this is why you want to work on exercises, the music and work on songs you like, but you will become a lot better at playing music if your fingers can do what your brain tells them to do. One of the things that, okay, you answered, one of the things with knowing and solving a problem is identifying the problem. You just said, Phil, my hands don't work together. So what do they have to do? They got to work together. So what you do is this. You start slow. Now, I'll give you just a brief idea. Adam, can you hit 185 there? This is like my standard slowest warm-up I do. Yeah, just a... I'll go all the way down the neck. Then 1-3. Now, when I do that, then I'll start doing some more. Can we stop that for a second? Now, I like to start 3 different ways. One, I'll start high to low. I'll start at the 12th fret and go straight down to the 1st fret. I'll start on the 1st string, go down, then back up, all the way down. Then sometimes I'll start on the 6th string and go up and go back down. Then other times I will do those same 2 things, moving it up. And I do it fingers 1 and 2, 1 and 3, all the way down, 1 and 4. So that, and I do it in time. I like to use drum software, so I use drum programs. It's in my computer, and so I just programmed a real simple beat, but I programmed it so that I know where 1 is. So even when I get off of 1, it's not about playing 4/4, it's about doing the exercise in time. But I found once I do that, then I'll do this. I'll do fingers 1 2 1 3 1 4 2 3 2 4 3 4. It takes about 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes. Then I start on the 3 notes per string. Adam, can you hit that again? Like this. Some of it's 2 notes, some of it's 3. Watch. Now change the rhythm. Now then, can we stop that? I will start from the 24th fret, go all the way down. But again, sometimes I'll go up. But I like going down because it really improves your bicep moving this way. When you move towards the headstock, your muscle is working a little harder, believe it or not, than moving it this way. Okay, so that's what. Then after I do that, Adam, can you hit that again? 3 notes. Then I'll go all the way down the neck. Can we stop? Then what I'll do after that, so this is the order, and I do this all the time. Once I do this, it takes about 10 minutes. Then hit this. This is the last part of it. And what I do is I start and I don't stop. I take the entire exercise down. So what are you working on? You're working on coordinating your hands and your head. It's this triangle that I talk about, that my head is telling Joey, hello, and Robert to sync up and work together. The metronome or drum software is giving me a beat to work on, so I start getting feel. Now after I do that, then I start goofing around with other stuff. Can you hit it again? Economy picking. Watch. Okay, so I start varying it. Then I start doing sweeps. I'll do whatever I want. And what happens is once it takes about, if you want to really warm up, it takes about a half hour to 45 minutes to do this and just concentrate on these different techniques. All of a sudden, I find for myself, it just kicks in. It's like the engine is warmed up and I don't even notice it. And all of a sudden, I am flying. Okay, let's see. Now, is that a Floyd Rose original? Yes. Okay. I love broke. Okay, any other questions? Let's see. Let's move forward. Is this
We're down at the bottom now.
what's that?
This is we're caught up.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, anything else? Was there one that somebody was asking, like a
A lot of
question?
people have asked, who are your influences and who did you listen to when you started?
Okay, that is a great question. I started at 10 years old playing guitar, and I played piano at 5. I found a picture of my mother playing the accordion when she was a little girl. She hated it. She didn't like the accordion, but she was really good at it. But she liked piano, and she was excellent at piano. And I watched her. So my earliest influence was watching my mother play, and I learned a song by listening and watching her play when I was 5. So, but I realized keyboards weren't my calling, that I wanted to play guitar. I love the sound of guitar. And then, so my earliest influences were not what you would think. I seemed to gravitate towards instrumental guitar. And so I started, my earliest influences were kind of like surf music. Like I remember now, Grant, I don't have my channel switcher here. So anyway, it's like, is it working? Is it on? Okay, sorry, okay, it was there. I thought I had it screwed up. Okay, so what I learned was like, so this. I started learning instrumental guitar. Then I would listen to, I was a really big Eric Clapton fan. I liked Cream, but this was only this was about 3 years into playing guitar, because when I first started out, I'm going to just say it, I'm older. Jimi Hendrix had just released his first album. And so Cream wasn't around yet. Led Zeppelin wasn't around. It was the Beatles. And I like the Beatles a lot. I love their music now even more than I did when I was a kid, because there was a time when I just listened to metal. I refused to listen to anything without overdriven guitars, dude. But my earliest influences were bands like the Beatles, the Ventures. I absolutely loved the Ventures. Then a couple years later, when I was in 8th grade, now I was 13 years old, that's when I started really getting into bands and getting, having an overdrive. It was actually called a fuzz box, where I started getting into Eric Clapton and Cream and Hendrix, and learning a lot of Hendrix songs. The song Born to Be Wild was a big one. I mean, it's still in movies. I just saw it in the new Aquaman movie. It's still around. That song is still heavy even today, all those years later. But here's what happened. Right around the time I turned around 15, the prog era of rock came in. Keith Emerson, Jethro Tull, Mahavishnu Orchestra. And that's really when the influences kicked in, because when I was younger, I only took lessons for 3 years. And when I was 13, my teacher actually told me, he said, "You're faster at 13 than I was at 22. And he goes, "I can't teach you." So I had studied jazz. I had several teachers in those 3 years. And then I was on my own, and I never took lessons again. So I was kind of wandering from 13 to 15. And I used to work at this men's clothing store. This sounds really weird. It was called Allen's Store for Men. And I'd ride my bike there, and I'm 14 years old. And I remember listening. It was a really high-end store, and I learned how to clean, okay? My house is immaculate. I learned how to clean back then. And here's what happened. I would hear these really fast riffs, and they had clean guitar. I'm like, who is this? And I found out later it's people like George Benson. So between the ages of 13 and 15, I was on my own. And so I was kind of discovering what I liked, and I'm starting to get older. thank God I'm 6 feet tall, and I wasn't very tall back then. I wasn't, I was really young looking for my age, and I was tiny. And so anyway, I started listening to people like John McLaughlin and L. Di Meola, George Benson, Django Reinhardt. I started listening to things that were way beyond just rock music and Robert Fripp, like just stuff I used to. And then, or like McLaughlin. I used to love that stuff. So those were my earliest influences. But I can say that the people who made the biggest impression on me were the Al Di Meolas, the John McLaughlins, the guitar players, Alan Holdreth, even though nobody I knew could play like Holdreth. We couldn't even fathom it. Now it's just part of the vocabulary. But it was guitar players that were pushing, the Bensons, that were pushing the technical side. I seem to gravitate. And I love Jimi Hendrix, okay? But I don't really, especially looking back, he wasn't this major influence on me because I never really latched on to that super wildness. If somebody would have said, it's like the old saying from Gilligan's Island, if anyone knows the show, Ginger or Mary Ann. Okay, so if you said like, are you a Van Halen style guitar player, Steve Vai, that more wild side, or are you a more Yngwie style or Michelangelo Badio style, more technical? It would be like Hendrix Clapton. They were very different, and I was more Eric Clapton. That's how I look at it. I didn't realize it back then, because I loved Hendrix's music. I know a lot of his songs. And so it's not about loving him as an artist. It's just the way he played. People like Johnny Winter, that was another influence. But anyway, Benson's picking technique. Somebody asked how you improve your tremolo picking. Practice the tremolo. Practice it to a beat, to a BPM. Adam, hit that again, okay? Practice it. You just work on it. But it's better to do it to a BPM because you can always, people's feelings and energy level changes. So if you're feeling like really energetic, I'm ripping, I'm swelling, you're ripping, okay? But if you don't listen to a BPM and you're tired, or you wake up in the morning, see, it's funny. 185 is low to me. I've been working on my double guitar. I wasn't even thinking. But when I get up to 250, 270, 280, and I'm really ripping, and 300, I warm up to it. See, I don't just start there. But I find when you have a BPM, beats per minute, whether it's a metronome that you can use in your phone, or whether it's a drum software, there's stuff you can use in your phone, or on a laptop, or a desktop, or whatever you want to use, iPad. What I found is this: it takes the energy level out of the equation because you have a finite beats per minute that okay. I know that 185 is slow for me, so whether it feels fast or feels slow is immaterial. You still play to that and move it up. Let's see. Somebody asked, would I consider George Lynch a more wild or technical? I consider him more on the wild side. Personally, I know George pretty well. I think he's amazing. I love Dokken's music. And it's funny, when I was in the band Holland, our producer, Tom Werman, had produced all the early Dokken stuff, just like, when you hear Motley Crue or Twisted Sister or Poison, Every Rose Has Its Thorn, Cheap Trick, I Want You to Want Me, that's all Tom Werman. Tom Werman played me some Dokken, and he said, he goes, I think George Lynch is a world-class guitarist. And I agree with that. I think George Lynch is a world-class guitar player too. He's technical, there's no doubt, but he's got that wild feel to him. So if I had to put him in a category, which I don't like to put anybody, but I'd say he's more on that wild side. I'd say the same with Steve Vai. You know, he gets... You know, he likes some crazy noises, which I think that's amazing. I love Steve Vai. I love I'm really good with the wang bar. Wait till you hear the new Manowar stuff. But I never really used it as like an integral part of my technique. It's just things I know from having to do studio work and having to get different sounds. Okay, what do I think of Prince? I think Prince was a great artist. I mean, I think he falls under a category what Robert Fripp from King Crimson said about Jimi Hendrix. He said Hendrix had something to say, and the guitar just happened to be the way he said it. And I feel that's the same with Prince or Frank Zappa. You know, Frank Zappa's guitar playing was way out there, but Frank Zappa had something to say, and the guitar was the way he felt he wanted to express himself. I think with Prince too. I think Prince was a really cool guitar player, but his music, you know, he was an artist in the way like a McCartney is an artist, or an Elton John, or it's when you have hit songs like that, and it's your music. It transcends just being a guitarist. I mean, David Gilmour's a guitar player, but he's in this band that's just got some of the biggest selling songs of the last 70 years. And I think Prince is that same way too. I really enjoy his guitar playing, what he did in Purple Rain, but I think he's a lot more than a guitar player. He's a singer, a writer, an entertainer, an artist that happens to play guitar. So yeah, I really like him. Okay, let's see. Okay, do you think you can make it on the metal side of music in this modern age? I think anybody can make it in any age. I think there's more genres of metal than ever before. If you look statistically at what is selling worldwide, hip-hop is on the way down. Remember, hip-hop's not new. Rap's pretty old now. We're looking 40 plus years of rap. So, it's no spring chicken, as they say. So what's happening, though, is with the influx of females being really fantastic on their instruments, the playing field, there's a lot of great women out there that are ripping on guitar. And it was like that with orchestral music for a long, long time. There's a lot of women in symphony orchestras because they knew the same techniques as the men. They were taught equally. In guitar, all women had to do is learn how to hit it hard and play as aggressively as guys. And that is just not even an issue anymore. So but I think that metal has so many different subgenres. Metal is extremely popular. Okay, it's never been mainstream except in the Guns N' Roses era. When you look at the history of metal, Led Zeppelin would get a song on the charts, but that was top 40 radio. That was not genre specific. You could have a country song. You could have on the charts a country song. You could have a Motown song. You could have an instrumental song. You could have a vocal song. You could have the biggest pop song. You could have Dolly Parton, Led Zeppelin, Michael Jackson on the same chart. It didn't matter. It was the popularity of a song. And metal until the 1980s, around the Guns N' Roses era and Whitesnake, that's when metal became mainstream and it dominated the charts. That's the only era that metal really dominated. And Led Zeppelin still had their own private jet and was selling out multiple nights at Madison Square Garden when metal was not the number one genre as far as total sales. And so why am I saying this? Because right now, rock, look at classic rock. How many renditions of Hotel California can you see online? And so rock has risen a lot. Metal is really popular. Country music is getting, I mean, Beyonce did a country song, so that should tell you something. So what you're having is genres where people play and sing becoming more popular. So to answer your question, yes, you can make it in metal. And nowadays, Herman Lee and I were talking about this. Everybody's wearing something, you know. I mean, it's like everybody's trying to be their own Kiss. And hey, it's a lot of competition now, but it was a lot of competition when I came up too. I'm still here. So anyway, I just want to say this. I hope you got something. Greg Howe and Guthrie Gubbins. I have to answer this last question. EVH did not start shred playing in metal. I don't agree with that. Uli John Roth was doing it a lot before that. And anyway, what is my opinion regarding playings of both Greg Howe and Guthrie? I know them both personally. I know Greg Howe better than I know Guthrie, but Guthrie and I have had dinner together, and he likes my guitar playing and my alternate picking technique. He's used me as an example. Greg Howe is fantastic, so is Guthrie. I love them both for different reasons. Guthrie he's comfortable on almost any genre. Greg is this great fusion guitar player with all this really cool, unique tapping stuff that he does, and I love them both. And I'm very familiar with both their music. So anyway, but I'd like to say this. I hope you got something out of this today because, you know, one of the things with metal, just like guitar playing, metal is more than the music. It's a lifestyle. And that's what I've seen, especially being in a band. Manowar's an arena band. We sell out arenas and we don't even have opening acts a lot of our shows. We don't go with tour packages. I mean, we're selling these seats, these venues out, just the band. And it's not just me, believe me, I understand that. It's the music, they have this huge history, and it's not guitar specific, that's for sure. They've had success, it's Eric and Joey. And you know, I'm proud to be on board with it. But what I have seen is that the people that listen and love metal, it's more than that. They can work other jobs, and the majority of the people that are fans do, but metal is a lifestyle. And to make it in music nowadays, it's hard, but it was hard in any generation. It's hard to do anything and be successful. You just have to get that auto-suggestion and tell yourself, I can do it. I know I can. Anyway, I'm Michelangelo Badio. See ya.